She mocked me for being jealous because she made more than me, until I showed her my hidden $267,000, and watched her life fall apart piece by piece. I was 28. My girlfriend, Vanessa, who was 29 at the time, had this habit of turning every conversation about money into a subtle competition. It should have been a red flag when she started keeping a spreadsheet of our dinner bills just to make sure I was paying my exact share, even though she earned double what I made. But I guess when you're in love, you tend to ignore those little warning signs. We had been dating for 2 years, and for the last 8 months, we'd been living together in her downtown condo. At first, it seemed like a good arrangement. She owned the place, and I paid her $800 a month for rent, which was way below market price for the area. She loved to remind me how generous she was being. Anytime we argued about anything at all, she'd throw in a comment like, "You'd be paying twice that for a studio in this neighborhood." She worked in pharmaceutical sales, bringing in around $120,000 a year plus bonuses. Meanwhile, I worked as a logistics coordinator at a small shipping company, making $55,000 a year. Not a flashy job, but solid and stable. Before we even moved in together, she had asked to see my pay stubs. She said she needed to assess the financial risk of living together. That should have been my first real red flag, but I was too caught up in how much I liked her to think twice. At first, her spending habits didn't seem like a big deal. She'd buy the occasional designer bag or treat us to a fancy dinner. But then it escalated: $400 dinners, weekend trips to wine country, a brand new Tesla Model Y, and constant complaints about how she was broke by the 20th of every month. She'd laugh and say things like, "Credit cards are basically free money if you just pay the minimum." Meanwhile, she'd give me side-eye for buying generic cereal. Everything boiled over one Tuesday. She had just dropped $3,200 on a luxury retreat in Sedona for her and her sister. I made the mistake of suggesting maybe she should slow down on spending since she had been complaining about her Amex bill. Her response was a laugh followed by, "Oh my God, seriously? You're giving me financial advice? You make less than my quarterly bonus. You're just jealous because I make more money than you." I stayed completely calm and said, "You're right. I am jealous." She smiled smugly and said, "At least you can admit it. Maybe focus on your own career instead of counting my money." That's when I pulled out my phone and logged into my other bank account, the one she didn't know about. The screen lit up with a balance of $267,000 sitting comfortably in index funds and ETFs. What Vanessa didn't know was that my grandfather had been a small-time landlord. He owned 3 rental properties he'd bought back in the 80s. When he passed away 5 years ago, he left them to me. I sold 2, kept 1, and after taxes and setting aside money for management, I walked away with around $180,000 from the sales. The remaining rental brought in about $2,100 a month after expenses. I'd been living well below my means and investing consistently for years. Her face went through at least a dozen emotions as she stared at my screen. What is this?" she asked. "My investment account," I replied. "All legit. Inherited property, sold some, invested wisely. Been doing this before we even met." "You've been lying to me this whole time," she accused. "I never lied," I said. "You never asked if I had other assets. You only wanted to see my pay stubs. Remember, that's when the entitlement really came out. We're building a life together. You should have told me. Do you know how much stress I've been under thinking I was carrying us financially?" "Carrying us?" I asked. "I pay you rent. I buy groceries. I pay half for our dates. How exactly are you carrying us?" She snapped. "I've been subsidizing your lifestyle. This condo, our vacations, everything. While you've just been sitting on a fortune." "Your vacations," I corrected. "Ones I paid my share for. And I pay you rent for a room, not half your mortgage. There's a difference." For the next 2 hours, she flipped between anger, tears, and weird attempts at acting sweet again. Suddenly, I was babe instead of roommate, like she'd been calling me to her friends. The real kicker came the next morning. I woke up to her on her laptop looking at houses on Zillow. She turned to me and said, "I found some amazing houses. With your down payment and my income for the mortgage approval, We could get something really nice. My down payment? I asked. Well, yeah, she said. I can't liquidate my Tesla lease, but this is perfect. We can finally upgrade. I'm thinking at least 3,000 square feet. Good school district for the future. I just stared at her. Vanessa, we're not buying a house together. Why are you being so selfish? This is what couples do. They pool resources. Like you pooled resources when you made me pay rent while telling everyone I was a freeloader? I asked. That hit a nerve. She denied it, but I told her about her sister asking me at Thanksgiving if I'd found a better job yet, because Vanessa can't support you forever. I could see in that moment that the mask she had been wearing all this time was finally slipping. Her face twisted in frustration, and she tried to recover by saying, "That's not fair, babe. I was just venting to my sister. You know how families talk." But I wasn't buying it anymore. All those little comments over the past year, all the subtle digs at my job, my salary, my car, they weren't jokes. They were the truth she thought she could hide under a smile. I took a deep breath and said, "Vanessa, this isn't working. You don't respect me. You've made it clear you see my worth based on my paycheck. And now that you know I've saved money, suddenly I'm worth more to you. That's not love." She opened her mouth to argue, but I kept going. You wanted to compete over money? Fine. But this isn't a partnership. It's a transaction to you. And I'm done being part of your balance sheet. She scoffed and said, "Oh please, you're overreacting. You're just mad because I make more." I smiled calmly and said, "You won't have to worry about that anymore." I walked into the bedroom, grabbed my suitcase from under the bed, and started packing my clothes. She followed me, her voice rising with every sentence. "Wait, you're seriously leaving? Over this? Babe, come on, don't be dramatic. We can work this out." I kept packing. "You called me jealous yesterday. Today you're planning how to spend my savings. That's not something we work out. That's who you are." Her tone shifted again, this time to desperation.
Okay, I'm sorry.
"I didn't mean it like that. I just get stressed about money. We can figure out a budget. Maybe combine accounts." I stopped and looked her dead in the eyes. "Vanessa, the only account you're getting access to is the one you already know about, the one that pays you rent until the end of the month. After that, I'll be gone." She tried to guilt me by saying, "After everything I've done for you, you're just going to walk out?" I laughed softly. "Everything you've done for me? You mean letting me pay rent while calling me a freeloader? Or publicly comparing my salary to yours? Or acting like my value is in my wallet?" I shook my head.
No, Vanessa.
You didn't do those things for me. You did them for yourself. By that afternoon, I had packed every belonging I owned into my car. I left my set of keys on the kitchen counter, along with a handwritten note that simply said, "Good luck." No long explanations.
No imouščenel gudbje.
Just 2 words that meant I was closing the chapter permanently. The next few weeks were quiet until the texts started. First, they were angry. "You're an idiot for leaving a good thing. You'll regret this when you're alone." Then they turned to sadness. "I miss you. We were perfect together until you got paranoid." And finally, the last stage, the manipulation. "I think I might be pregnant. We need to talk." I knew it was a lie because she'd told me herself she was still on birth control. I never responded. I changed my number, blocked her on social media, and focused on building the life I actually wanted. I moved into a small but comfortable place closer to my job, kept saving and investing, and took a solo trip to Iceland. Something I'd always wanted to do but couldn't because she thought cold destinations are a waste of money. 6 months later, a mutual friend told me Vanessa had to sell her condo after falling behind on her mortgage and credit card payments. Apparently, the Tesla lease had been repossessed too. It wasn't that I took joy in her struggle, but I won't lie, there was a certain satisfaction in knowing I had walked away from a financial sinkhole just in time. The biggest lesson I learned was simple. Money doesn't change people. It just shows who they really are. Vanessa was always going to see relationships as a competition, and no amount of love or loyalty would have changed that. The day I left was the day I stopped being a number on her spreadsheet and started being a person again. And honestly, I've never looked back. If you're reading this and ever feel like someone is measuring your worth in dollars instead of who you are, remember, you can always walk away. Your peace and self-respect are worth more than any bank account. Like and subscribe for more stories.